Hello folks, so once again I'm back with another topic, another episode on AWS security service or services. So basically I am moving from firewall, AWS firewall to AWS Shield, then to AWS firewall manager. Now I want to, this episode is dedicated for AWS network firewall. Now the catch here is that network firewall is for deep packet inspection for VPC. That shows that the security tooling that monitor and inspect traffic that move in and out of your VPC is called network firewall. Now, one of the things I want to say very quickly here is that network firewall can be directly attached to your VPC or your transit gateway. It can be attached to either of these two. And the firewall subnet can take care, you can add all of the availability zones and the subnet within them to your attachment. Now, one of the things I want to say here is the fact that this is a, let me say, this is a stateless engine. How so? The reason is that when network firewall is inspecting your packet, it's just stateless. It doesn't compare it to maybe compare it to maybe previous traffic or any other adjacent traffic. No, it's just as it coming, it inspects it against some existing signature-based rules, and if there is anything that is suspicious, then it deals with that. Now, so AWS stateless engine evaluate individual packet in isolation, fast, high volume, accept drop by IP port. So what we are seeing here is that it's either it accepts or it drops it, and this is a Suricata IPS compliant, network firewall tooling as well. How do I mean? For those of us that that we have done network security before, you will see that there is a particular tooling called Suricata. Is an intrusion prevention system that is, I think we have an open source of it. Now, the reason why this has to be compared is that the same signature based approach, that was used in Suricata intrusion prevention system is the same that is being used in AWS network firewall. So if you can even you can lift and shift some of the signature firewall rules in those environments and bring it to your AWS environment. Now, so it's to tell you that this is purely VPC network, inspection, deep packet inspection for threats and some other things like that. The other thing I want to say about this is centralized inspection, VPC. Now, if you look at, I don't want to jump some of the things, but I'll talk about something later, which is like why is it so important. But before we get to that, if you look at what I explained in the firewall manager landscape, I told us that firewall manager make use of what we call network firewall directory. That network firewall directory is actually like the engine that powers the network firewall. So now, if you have to manage every firewall, let me say every VPC firewall, that shows that every VPC you have in your environment, you have to manage the firewall rules and everything like that. That will not scale. So that is why it's very important for you to utilize firewall manager, especially with things like network firewall, so that you can manage firewall policies at scale via this engine. So that is another thing I want to mention here. And if you look at what are the business process, business problem that is solved, I've said one like multi-VPC network visibility blind spot. That shows that if you have multiple, like I said, multiple VPCs, you will definitely have a blind spot, or you will lose control of how to manage policies that apply to their network. But so this allows you to use a firewall manager and bring them to a centralized location. C2, that is command and control exfiltration and ransomware. So if you look at the way network firewall works, it inspects even your outbound communication. So that shows that you can lock down your outbound communication to a particular IP address or maybe a URL, fully qualified domain name. That okay, I just want this particular maybe database server to communicate with this specific one. Every other one should be dropped. Should be dropped. Connection should be dropped. So this allows you to prevent a situation whereby your network can be circumvented and your internal server can be communicating with command and control server outside your network. So the other thing is firewall appliances operation overhead. So racking, patching, and scaling, these are the solutions that this network firewall solves. So instead of you having like multiple firewall appliances, have to manage them, the racking, everything. This is a virtual firewall for your network environment. And there are no consistent egress enforcement across accounts. Like I said, if you have so many accounts, it might be difficult for you to lock down your egress. That's why some things might slip through. You might forget some things. But using it with firewall manager and having a single point where you can author these policies and you can you can publish them. It's a lot better. So with that, that is what I want to, what I want to bring to our notice, bring to us in case of network firewall. And it's very important that we know how to create it, like how to create it. But you can't, I think the creation of, policies or tooling now is not the problem right now. It's for you to know what exactly you want to do with it, what exactly you want to achieve, what kind of business problem, is solving, and what kind of best practices should be applied to this. So that is one of the reasons that I'm doing these videos, is that in the age of AI, where people can generate, infrastructure as code, and they can generate, you can ramp up infrastructure deployment at scale. It's very important now that people understand and know what are the specificity of these particular toolings. What do they do? What kind of business, business problem do they answer? And the best practices that should be applied to them. What kind of, adjacent toolings or maybe complementing toolings that work with them for optimal value out of it. So with this, I come to the end of, network, AWS Network Firewall.